Hello, everyone. This is Miss Carves again for another lecture titled Communication for Work Purposes. Last time I uploaded Communication for Academic Purposes, which was all about you being a communicator within the context of the academe. Now, if you already finished your studies, it's inevitable that you're going to go out there and expand your horizon and live the career of your dreams. And now you're still going to need to write because business correspondence would still be there. And it's inevitable that in your chosen careers, whatever those are, you would still be writing. So for today, that's what we are going to talk about. So, when you are out there in real life career situations, how do you write? What do you write? And how are you going to do it effectively and proficiently? All right. So, first thing we have to know how important is communication in the workplace. All right, so communication in the workplace is critical to establishing and maintaining quality working relationships in organizations. Actually, communicating effectively in the workplace is both science and art, and it is crucial in the achievement of one's goals, of the any organization's goals, of or any institutional goals or any team's goals or company's goals, right? Because communication in the workplace, if effectively practiced, can number one, produce better outputs, number two, produce successful results, and number three, make or create strong professional relationships. And these kinds of relationships result in efficient and effective performances and productivity. And of course, the different functions that you have in terms of the organization or the company can well be served if proper communication is channeled. Okay, so let us see the importance of communication in the workplace through narrowing down the ones that I said earlier. Okay, so number one, it creates job satisfaction. Like imagine a company that doesn't have open and easy communication. Of course, there will be very, very few employees that could feel that they're satisfied with their jobs. All right, now where is job satisfaction coming from? It comes from the fact or the feeling that you are valued in an organization, right? And when you are valued, you feel like your voice is heard, you feel like your feedback is important, and you feel like you play a crucial role in the decision making in bettering the company. So, in short, these effective communication and efficient communication, open and friendly environment in the workplace creates or builds trust and loyalty among the subordinates, which in turn translates into greater job satisfaction on their end. Communication in the workplace lessens conflicts, of course, when you are having problems, when you're encountering some troubles or some conflicts, there's no better way to address those conflicts by open communication. And when you have communications like this, then you get to explore different options. You get to weigh things out and see like, different perspectives as to how to resolve that particular problem. And when you do that as a practice, you see that as time goes by, conflicts are being lessened and lessened, if not totally, eliminated, because you try to work together and talk things over. Okay, so when may it be a conflict with a coworker, or a conflict with a client, or a conflict with an administrator. Okay, so all of those things could be answered and could be resolved through proper and effective communication. Of course, the conflict won't be resolved if it's not communicated at all. So the first thing that you have to do is to communicate the conflict, like understand and recognize that there's a conflict, and try to communicate all possible details, and try to see where this conflict is rooted from, so that you could find ways on how to resolve it. Okay, next, increases productivity. So of course, communication in the workplace increases productivity by allowing the managers, the administrators, as well as the subordinates to work together to work hand in hand in order for them to produce better results. This is also due to the fact that when there is an open communication, you get to communicate to them what the goals of the company are, what the vision and mission of the company are, what are the things that are expected of them. Okay, so all these things are gonna lead to increased productivity because you as an employee know where you are and know where you stand, and you know what you expect, what are expected of you, and you know how you are going to meet the obligations that you have in order to better the company and the results that it gets. Next up is it nurtures relationships. Of course, needless to say that if you have effective communication in the workplace, then you can build a lot of friendships. You can build even like smooth and harmonious relationships with your bosses, with your colleagues, and with even with your clients. And then maximize resources. Of course, when there's lesser conflict, when there's better relationships, when there's increased productivity, then you avoid delays, you avoid waste of resources, you avoid redoing the tasks, of course, because you are successful at your first shot. So it maximizes all the resources that you have, may they be financial resources, human resources, of course, your time, okay, and other resources that there are that the company need and protect as well. Okay, so let us go to possible barriers in communication in the workplace. So there are a lot, and in this discussion, I will be talking about two categories, namely environmental barriers and personal barriers. So let's talk about environmental barriers first. Of course, environmental barriers have something to do with the setting, with the ambience, with the things that are actually surrounding you in the workplace. Okay, so time. Of course, time is of the essence, and this could be a barrier. For example, if you have a thing, if you have something rushed to do, of course, communication can be hampered because your head is all over the place, and that you can't focus on what you're doing because time is running out and stuff. And so you get pressured, and then all the other conflicts can arise from that. And of course, lack of time prevents you to carefully think about the communication that's going, to think thoroughly about the message and what you are expected to do, and of course, all those other things that might be caused by you thinking that time is really running out. Okay, now secondly, managerial philosophy is also a barrier. Why? Because if the philosophy of the higher ups or the administrators is that of something downward communication, then it could really be a great problem. Now, what is downward communication? Like your managers would really think highly of themselves, and then they think that they're always right, and then they don't have time to listen to their subordinates, and all the other commands and orders and decisions are from top to bottom, meaning downward. Okay, then it could be a very problematic situation, especially that they couldn't see the problems from the perspective of their employees or of their subordinates, because they can't see it all. Okay, let's face it, they can't see it all, and they don't feel how the subordinates feel, they don't feel how the employees feel. So if the managerial philosophy is something like that, or something authoritarian or dictatorial, then perhaps that is a very big barrier in terms of effective communication. Next is power and status. This is kind of related to the second one, because power and status can allow one to power trip. Okay, and based on experience, this happens a lot. Administrators power tripping on employees because they have the power and they have higher status. So again, this is a very problematic scenario. Sometimes superiority complex of some administrators or even your colleague are already embedded in the culture in your team or in your organization, and sometimes that you can't just do anything about it because they're like older, or they're like there for a longer time than you are. So these are very usual causes of miscommunication, and sometimes you're going to be misunderstood because of voicing out a feedback that you think may help the organization itself. Okay, next is technology. So of course, we are coming from different age brackets, so some people or some subordinates coming from a certain age bracket may not really understand how technology works, and they could not really operate technology. So if there's communication, for example, sent through email or sent through something that's advanced and online, then other employees who might not be familiar with this technology and how they work and how you navigate through them may have a trouble. We have trouble in terms of receiving the message and trying to catch up with what's being asked of them to do, or the announcements or whatnot. So again, technology is a double-edged sword, so it can be an advantage, at the same time a disadvantage to some people. So they have some people have a lot of catching up to do. Okay, so for personal barriers, number one, we have frame of reference, and this one is very crucial. Why? Because when we say frame of reference, this refers to the set of beliefs and values of people. And we all know that the workplace is a melting pot of different cultures, of different walks of life, of different socio-economic, political backgrounds, and religious beliefs, and principles and whatnot. So a lot of things. So the frame of reference would be different when you see it from another person's point of view. Now, if you are a kind of person or a worker or an employee or an administrator that tries to block all the other values and beliefs that are different from yours, then it's very problematic. Okay, and it's detrimental even, because you are trying to just limit yourself into your own set of values and beliefs, and your frame of reference is just your own. Okay, so meaning it's hampering the communication, because you're not trying to understand things from the perspective of those that you are communicating with in the workplace. So this one should be avoided. Again, this is a barrier, and you have to be more open-minded. We have to be more accepting. We have to be more tolerant in terms of differences. Next is the status quo. This becomes a problem when an individual tries to just, accept the present and prefer the present situation. Status quo meaning present. Okay, you're fine with the present. You're fine with what is here. Okay, even when what is here and what is present is very, very problematic, is very wrong, and is unethical. Okay, so you just accept it because it's here. Okay, what else can we do? Okay, that is very wrong. You don't say that because a lot of people say this. Okay, a lot of people say that since it's already here, then let's just accept it. We can't do anything about it, but we can. Okay, now number 3, lack of empathy. Perhaps this is related, because if we don't want to change something that is here, we just accept it because perhaps we're not affected by it, and we lack empathy to those who are affected by the present situation. So if you're enjoying like some sort of privileges, the others are not, and you have to really consider that. And if you lack empathy and compassion towards other people, then that will be very, very problematic as well. Now, how do we manage to overcome such communication barriers that we just talked about? Okay, so let me just brush through these tips from Longest et al. 2000 in overcoming barriers of communication in the workplace. All right, so since these are very, very self-explanatory, let me just read them to you and brush through them. Okay, the first one is that environmental barriers are reduced if receivers and senders ensure that attention is given to their messages and that adequate time is devoted to listening to what is being communicated. Very, very clear. We should all do this. Okay, secondly, management philosophy, the one that I said earlier, that encourages the free flow of communication is constructive. So your managers should be able to have an upward communication rather than a downward communication, because it's from the bottom that a lot of problems arise, and they should recognize that, right? And those who have the privileges might be blinded by those privileges, and we have to make them recognize and accept the fact that there could be problems experienced by those from the bottom, okay, of the structure. Next, reducing the number of links reduces opportunities for distortion. So in the levels of organizational hierarchy, there could just be a lot of middlemen. You have message, and then this message is being transmitted from one middleman to another middleman to another middleman until it goes to the admin. So if we are going to reduce those links, the number of those links, then we could probably have a more efficient flow of communication. The next one, the power or status barrier can be removed by consciously tailoring words and symbols so that messages are understandable. Reinforcing words with action significantly improves communication among different power or status levels. Using multiple channels to reinforce complex messages decreases the likelihood of misunderstanding. Personal barriers are reduced by conscious efforts of senders and receivers to understand each other's values and beliefs. That's why I said that frame of reference is very crucial, because we have different set of values and beliefs which you have to understand. One must recognize that people engage in selective perception and are prone to jealousy and fear, especially in the context of workplace, because we can actually treat it as a competition arena, okay, wherein we are competing with our colleagues, with our coworkers, or with the admin itself. The third one, of course, would be sharing empathy, and of course, needless to say that empathy moves mountains. Okay. Next, use techniques that extend beyond traditional organizational lines to facilitate communications. For example, use diagonal communication that flows through task forces or committees, enhances communication throughout the organization. This is what we call intra-organizational structure, wherein you're not only having from top to bottom, you're having cross-sectional structure where committees can work together and can do jigsaw tasks, right, that are complementary with each other. And so when you do cross-sectional communication as well, you get to have a wider grasp of what is really going on, and if there's a problem, where is the problem coming from, and what are the possible solutions that you could do in order to solve those problems. And of course, this one, planning, controlling, and managing, the information systems also facilitate communication. So you have to have different committees for planning, for controlling, and for managing. And I suggest for assessment as well, so that we could work hand in hand towards the objectives of the company as well. And lastly, use human resources policies and procedures like job training and job rotation to enhance cooperation among members in organizations, and use management processes to resolve conflicts in an equitable manner to produce effective communication. So now that we have discussed the importance of communication in the workplace, and then some possible barriers in communication, as well as how to overcome them according to some authorities, let us now deal with the kinds of written business communication in the workplace. Okay, so what are the types of communication that you're doing in the workplace, and what are the usual things that are expected of you when you go out there and do your own careers? Okay, so let's take a look at these lists. Okay, so we have business written correspondence or communication. Almost always the communication that is going on in a workplace would be written communication. Okay, so that's text chats, emails, memos, letters, proposals, reports, and resumes. Of course, business communication in written form requires skill and expertise, and every word counts in a written communication, because you wouldn't want to write something and then immortalize that, because when you write something, it's already being immortalized, right? So you have to be aware that it may be there forever. It may be filed and documented forever. So you have to really be an expert, if not an expert, like you are proficient in terms of writing business communication. Okay, so from memos to letters, from business proposals to press releases, and these from resumes to reports, all of these things represent you as well as your company. So your goal is to make it clear, concise, and professional as well. Okay, so let's go through this one by one. So firstly is business texting and chatting. So, whatever digital device that you use, communication in the form of texting and chatting has become a common way to connect. Would you agree? Because it's convenient, and wherever you are, whenever you need to, you can communicate with a text or with a chat. Okay, so it's useful, but again, please consider the context of what you are sending, because it might not always be the best business communication out there, because a chat and a text may be informal at the same time. They should just be brief messages. If you have long complicated messages, you have to do other business communication. Okay, so tips for effective texting or chatting. Number one, know your recipient. Of course, it's different when you send a text to a close colleague or office mate or a co-teacher, whatever. And then it's different when you're texting or chatting to your boss or to your administrator, to your head, or even to a client. So know your recipient. Okay. Next, anticipate unintentional misinterpretation. Remember that our written communication is divorced of emotions. So therefore, when you write, you can't hint, especially formally, right? You can't hint what your attitude is. Okay, you really can't put smiley there because it's business communication. So how do you hint your attitude? Okay, so it's very difficult. That's why you have to anticipate unintentional misinterpretation due to these facts. Okay, and you have to make sure that before you send that text or chat, that you have anticipated that misinterpretation and you have done something about it. Okay, next, use it when appropriate but don't abuse it. Of course, if you frequently text or chat someone, I mean too frequently, okay, that can be bordering on harassment already. Okay, especially on weekends, especially during breaks, especially during holidays. So be respectful of someone's personal time or someone's family time. Okay, for example, do not text or chat about workplace matters at midnight or in the holidays. Especially if that you're aware that that person has a personal life too. Okay, so connected to that is unplug yourself once in a while. If you feel like you are too connected, you're always connected, then it's okay to put your phone down. It's okay, because especially if it's not your work time, if it's not your schedule, if it's too much to ask of you, you can say no. Okay, that is also one thing that you have to learn in the workplace. Don't accept it all. Okay, especially if you think that you're being abused already. Okay, so you can unplug yourself once in a while. And then don't text or chat and drive. Of course, this one is very self-explanatory for us to be able to avoid traffic crashes or what they call accidents. Okay, let's proceed to emails. Okay, so electronic mail or email is quite familiar to most students and most workers, because it's very much the thing nowadays, especially for formal communication. But unlike chat, which is very synchronous, for example, an email can be asynchronous, like you send it now and then the reply could be like way later. And an email is much more formal compared to chat and text, right? So these are the tips on how to use emails effectively or do emails effectively. Number one, proper salutations should demonstrate respect. So you always have to have the salutation, like just like in a hard print letter. You have to have dear Miss or Mr. or greetings, or dear doctor, dear professor, blah blah blah. Okay, subject lines should be clear, brief, and specific. So do not send something like an email about our observance of the holiday. Okay, so that is a very long, unclear, and not specific subject line. So you can just say Christmas break schedule, okay, or Christmas holiday schedule. Okay, that will be very brief, clear, and specific. So in my case, for example, I always use the subject lines synchronous session number 3 or synchronous session number 4, and then the section, so that it's clear, brief, and specific. Okay, and then close with the signature. So the signature has to identify you as the sender, so your name, your full name, and then if possible your title, and then your position or affiliations, and then your contact information. Okay, avoid abbreviations because again, this is formal communication. Business communication is always formal communication, so please use formal register. I've already talked about that in the last video. And then be brief and omit unnecessary words. Of course, avoid verbal deadwoods because you are you are communicating in the context of a workplace, and you know that people there are so much busy and they don't have time for unnecessary words and correspondences. Okay, use good format. Just limit your email into 3 paragraphs. Okay, of course, an email should not just be crowded like for if you have so much to say, you have a one bulk of text in there. Okay, you can also divide that into paragraphs. It's inevitable that you go beyond 3 paragraphs, and you can just again attach the concept note or attach all the other information that you need, if you must, really attach in there. Reread, revise, and review. Of course, even if it's not emails, you need to reread, revise, and review all the time to avoid immortalizing mistakes or to avoid erratum, and to avoid miscommunication as well. And then reply promptly. When we say promptly, this does not mean that you reply like a minute after the email was sent. Okay, of course, a prompt email reply would mean 24 hours. Okay, within 24 hours you should be replying. If you can't really reply within 24 hours, at least acknowledge that you received the email, and then tell them that you will be following up, or you will be getting back to the sender like after 48 or 72 hours if you must. Okay, next, use reply all sparingly, except of course if you think that what you're about to reply is beneficial to all the recipients. But if it just concerns you, or if it's just a personal feedback or acknowledgement, then just use reply only. Okay, avoid using all caps because all capital letters are hinting that you are either mad or you are very excited, you're so emotional. And again, this is formal register, so we avoid empathic language. Okay, test your links. Okay, especially when we are trying to put a link in an email, of course we test it first if it's navigating through, and then you give feedback or follow up. So let's proceed to memos. Okay, now memos are shorter, and they are for number 1, for the purposes of information, although occasionally they can include elements of persuasion or a call to action. But most of the time it's for information, okay, and announcements and updates and whatnot. So this is a very short correspondence internally. So memos are internal correspondences within an organization, an institution, a company, whatever. Okay, so you don't give a memo to your client, right? Just give a memo to someone who is inside the same company that you are actually administering or managing. The things that we have to consider when we are writing a memo are these 5 bullets. So first of all will be audience orientation. Of course, you have to know who your target audiences are. At the same time, you have to know what their expectations are. Nextly, we have to observe professional and formal tone. Again and again and again, we have to use the formal register. Subject emphasis, just like what I said earlier, you have to really emphasize what the memo is for. This is the same as the subject line in the email. So here in the memo, you could also consider the example that I gave in terms of the subject for the email ad. Okay. By the way, memos have like elements, and it has, the first thing that you have to see there is to, and then the audience or the recipient. Let's say to all faculty members. And then from, so you can say from the head, okay, the English chairperson, for example. And then the subject line, okay, the subject, General Assembly English area. Okay, that's concise, that precise. Next, you have to have a direct format. Of course, the format, I just said that. So you have to, from, you have subject, and then you have the body of it, or the date. You have the date. Date is very important pala in the heading, because memos can be given daily. So you have lots of memos. When you are working, you can receive a lot of memo within the week or within the day. So you can you have to really pay attention to the date. Okay, and then objectivity. So we have to observe objectivity in writing the memo, because although it may seem very short and very casual, you have to make sure that it's objective and it's not subjective. So for example, you don't say, okay, love you all, like in the memo, for example, first meeting and then see you there, love you all. You can't do that, unless of course the workplace is very, very friendly like that. Okay, next we move on to letters. And we, unlike memos, which are internal correspondences, letters may be internal and external. So you can give a letter to a client, you can give a letter to a possible partner or a possible business partner, etc., etc. Okay, so letters are sent to recipients that are outside the organization as well, and they may serve to introduce the skills and qualifications of prospective employers. So we have different elements of letters, or simply parts of the letters, and these are the following. So since I have uploaded the PowerPoint to Big Sky, then you can just read them on your own. So I will just be brushing through them. Okay, and then you can just read what they are, and of course I'm sure that you are very familiar with them. Okay, and you've been using them. So return address, we have the date, we have a reference, we have delivery option, or sorry, we have delivery, which is optional, and then we have recipient note, which is also optional. Okay, and then we have salutation. Of course, let me just emphasize this, alright? So the salutation to whom it may concern is appropriate for letters of recommendations or other letters that are intended to be read by any and all individuals. So unless that is the case, alright, please make sure to exert effort to know the full name or the title, position, and affiliation of your recipient, just so you can respect them. At the same time, you feel that they're really valued, and then they feel that they are not alienated. Okay, non-introduction, opening paragraph, then your body and your conclusion. Of course, in your body, that's where you state the details, and then conclusion, of course, tying the points together, and then it clearly summarizes the points of the email if that's already a long email. And of course, you can thank them as conclusion, and you can leave your contact information so that they could contact you in case there are questions that need to be answered. Okay. Then closing, so you have sincerely, cordially. These are the standards, but please don't use this love, yours truly, and VFF, because these are for personal letters, or personal letters, but not for business letters. So be very careful. Then you have signature. So your signature, you have to type your name and then your title and then your affiliation perhaps, and then contact information, of course. And then preparation line. If the letter was not prepared by you, you need this. But if you prepared the letter, there's no need for this. Okay, and then enclosures and attachments, of course, just like an email, you can attach something in the letter. Okay, so in the advent of technology nowadays, especially due to this pandemic, so everything is really emailed. So I guess there's less and less people doing the printed letters, but still it could be handy for you to still know the parts of this particular letter. Okay, then courtesy copies, so that's the CC. Even emails have CC. They used to be they used to mean carbon copies, but now they're called courtesy copies. All right, and then the BCC in the email, you could also see the BCC in the email, right? That means blind courtesy copy. So the other receivers can't see that you have sent it to the BCC. Okay, so that's blind carbon copy or blind courtesy copies. And then of course logo, contact number. Okay, that's a must as well, right? Okay, next is business proposals. Okay, so for business proposals, you usually do this when you are trying to look for possible partners, or when you're trying to present a business project that you would like to work on to your boss, or to a client, or to a possible partner, for example. So an effective business proposal informs and persuades efficiently, right? So it features many common elements of a report, but the emphasis is persuasion. So always persuasion, because again, you're trying to propose a business, you're trying to pitch an idea that has to be, that has to be bought. Okay, so business proposals are documents that are designed to make a persuasive appeal to the audience, to be able to achieve a defined outcome other than proposing a problem to a solution. Okay, so these are the elements of a business proposal. Again, since I uploaded this, you can just read this on your own. So let me just brush through them. So you have a cover page, you have an executive summary. This is like an abstract in a report, or an abstract in a thesis or a research paper, right? Then you have a background. You have the proposal itself. You have market analysis. Okay, then you have benefits, timeline, marketing plan, finance, and of course your conclusion. Okay, so just read them on your own. These are very concise explanation naman. Okay, next we have reports. So reports are actually designed to record and convey information to the reader. So reports are part of business presentations, but these are more likely to be informative in nature rather than be persuasive in nature, because you're just basically putting forward the facts, or the statistics, or what have you, depending on the kinds of reports. So these are the kinds of reports. So we have laboratory reports, communicate procedures and results of a laboratory activities. Research reports, okay, you can just read them on your own. You have field study reports, you have progress reports, you have technical reports, financial reports, case studies reports. So please, again, study the PowerPoints, and everything is provided for you there. I also have needs assessment reports, comparative advantage reports, feasibility studies reports. You have instructional manuals, compliance reports, cost benefit analysis reports. Okay, then we have decision reports, benchmark reports, examination reports, physical description reports, literature reviews. So all of these are reports. Again, you may just read them through the PowerPoint that I uploaded. Now, for those who are watching right now who are not part of my class, you may just pause this video and screenshot the descriptions so that you can have the copy of these things. This is an example of a report. Okay, so you have the page, and then you have the elements, then you have the function, and then you have example there. Okay, you may just screenshot this, or check out the PowerPoint that I uploaded. Okay, now lastly we have resumes. Okay, and resumes are your first step towards your careers. So your resumes make or break you as an applicant, and this is your first shot at getting that dream job that you want and you deserve. So a resume summarizes your education, your skills, your employment history and experiences, and in a clear and concise format. Okay, for potential employers again. So a resume actually presents your professional information in writing. It also, number 2, demonstrates the relationship between your professional information and the problem or challenge that your potential employers might try to solve or address. Number 3, to get you an interview. Okay, so because resume first, then when your resume is impressive or past their standards, then you get a call for an interview. So your goal is really to get that interview, to get that job interview, because that's way one step closer towards getting the job. Okay, so how do you do a resume? Of course, one way or the other, you have done a resume. But now I'm presenting you the types of resumes that you can choose from. But almost always employers look for reverse chronological. So let's take a look at the 5 types of resumes in here. So we have reverse chronological, and it is also called reverse time order. It focuses on your time or your work history. And the disadvantage is that it may be difficult to highlight skills and experience. Next is a functional resume, which focuses on skills, and is also called competency-based resume. Okay, it demonstrates your skills that can clearly link to job functions or duties. However, the disadvantage is that it is often associated with people who have gaps in their employment history. So if they don't want to like highlight the gap in employment history, they are doing functional resumes. Okay, next we have a combination. So a combination resume lists your skills and experience first, then employment history and education. The disadvantage though is that some employers, as I said earlier, prefer reverse chronological order. Okay, targeted. This is a custom document that specifically highlights the experience and skills that are relevant to the job. And of course, it points out to the reader how your qualification and experience clearly match the job and duties. But of course, it will take time for you to do it. Okay, and then scannable, specifically formatted to be read by a scanner. But of course, the scannable thing is kind of obsolete nowadays because again, we are advancing and advancing in terms of technology, and a lot of people don't focus on scannable documents anymore because you can just email it, you can just attach it, so you can just do a document in Word and then send it right away. So that's all. I shall see you in November for your advocacy speeches. Bye.